I'm Nintendo.
And I'm Sega. This is Console War! Yeah, I don't think this is the place.
It is. The address matches.
But this place looks terrible.
So it's a little underfurnished.
Underfurnished? Dude, I'm pretty sure this is a dungeon.
That would explain the good rating.
That's it. I'm never using Airbnb again. I mean, this place doesn't even have a bathroom.
And it also smells really bad.
Yeah, let's get out of here.
Wait! We need your help!
Who said that?
Do not be afraid! We mean you no harm!
A talking Super Nintendo?
And a talking Sega Genesis!
Chocolate Blue, look at their shirts! Maybe they can help us break the curse!
What curse?
You see, this is not our true appearance! We were turned into these consoles by a witch! And the only way to break the curse is...
finding your true love?
What? No! Do not be ridiculous! What a dumb way to break the curse! This is not Beauty and the Beast!
Oh, so how do you break the spell?
Beauty and the Beast?
Right.
Beauty and the Beast, the video game! Beat it, and you break the curse.
Video games. Of course, it makes perfect sense.
Will you help us?
But you guys are consoles. That's gotta be pretty sweet.
Is it? People jamming crap into you multiple times a day and then blowing into your mouth with their Dorito breath? It is truly a curse.
I still don't know.
You can have all the free beer and food you want.
We're in.
Free beans! Sweet!
So, which version are we doing? Super Nintendo?
Or Sega Genesis?
Which one is better?
Well, Beauty and the Beast is better for Sega Genesis.
What? It's better for Super Nintendo.
Seriously? Are we doing this?
Yep.
Here are the games.
Okay, I'll just put the game in you, I guess.
Oh, pfft! What are you doing? Don't you crap into my mouth? We have perfectly good consoles over there.
Oh, must have missed that area before.
Beauty and the Beast for Super Nintendo.
Versus Beauty and the Beast Roar the Beast for Sega Genesis.
Beauty and the Beast is a Disney animated feature made in 1991. It was based on the French fairy tale by the same name. It also borrowed ideas from the 1946 film. The story, animation, and music made the film a critical and commercial success. It was even the first animated film to be nominated for a Best Picture Oscar.
The success of the film led to sequels, a Broadway musical, a TV series, a live-action remake, and of course, video games. There were games for Nintendo, Game Boy, Super Nintendo, and 2 for Sega Genesis.
The games we are looking at today are Beauty and the Beast for the Super Nintendo, developed by Probe Entertainment, and Beauty and the Beast Roar the Beast for Sega Genesis, developed by Sunsoft.
2 very different games. Which one's better? Let's find out.
My game looks just like the movie.
The Super Nintendo characters are right out of the movie. You have Beast, Belle, Gaston, Le Fou, and Lumiere. Then you have lots of locations from the film too. The great outdoors, the library, inside and outside the castle.
My game looks like the movie too.
The Sega game also has many characters from the movie. Beast, Belle, Gaston, Lumiere, and many more. My locations are right out of the film too. The great outdoors, outside the castle, inside the castle again.
I think it's pretty obvious that the Super Nintendo game looks better.
The levels on Super Nintendo have more variety, a more distinguished look from one another. So many of the levels on the Sega game look the same and use a lot of similar colors. The varied look on Super Nintendo definitely looks better.
Variety? You must be desperate. Let's talk about the most obvious difference. Size.
Characters in the Sega Genesis game are much bigger. I mean, just take a look at Beast. He's a lot bigger in Sega. Like a beast. In Super Nintendo, all the characters are incredibly small and barely have any details on them. Nice face, Belle. Her face has details in the Sega game. The enemies on Sega are much bigger too.
And as we all know, bigger is better.
Wait!
Bigger is better. I am bigger than him, so I am better.
Judge me by my size, do you?
Was that Yoda? I did not know we were doing Star Wars.
That was not my Yoda. That was my speech impediment. You know I am sensitive about that.
Those two are ridiculous.
You want to talk ridiculous? Let's look at your characters.
The beast looks big, but what's with his stance? Why are his arms like that? Is he trying to be Mr. Burns? He looks normal in my game. And look at this bear. He doesn't look scary. He looks silly. Again, I gotta go Simpsons. For some reason, he reminds me of the Scoutmaster.
Don't be afraid to use your nails, boys!
Characters look weird in your game too.
Again, the small size gives the Super Nintendo characters so little detail, and lots of the enemies seem lazy. Spiders, candles, books, bats you can barely see? Yikes. Glad Sega went with enemies that actually pose a threat, like bears, wolves, and man.
And these games are based on a Disney movie. The game with the Disney look should win.
The Sega game looks more like the movie. It has more of a cartoony look with its characters and levels. It's not quite cel-shaded, but it's incredibly close. The Super Nintendo game, on the other hand, looks less cartoony and more like sprites. And the Sega character animation is incredibly fluid. Just check out the Feather Duster. Sexy Feather Duster. With bigger characters, smoother character animation, and an overall look more in line with the movie. Best graphics go to Sega Genesis.
Presentation in my game's great.
The Sega Genesis game is loaded with cutscenes. There's cutscenes between every level, made up of stills and text. And these stills look like screenshots right out of the movie. They capture a lot of great moments from the film. It's nice to revisit them in a video game. Then when you play the game, at the top left, your life bar is mirrors, like from the movie. Then below is the number of lives. At the top right, you have your score with the number of roars you have left below. Nice and simple.
Well, my presentation is pretty sweet too.
The Super Nintendo game is also loaded with cutscenes. Instead of just using stills, the game uses a different approach. It has stained glass windows, just like the movie. These images are all accompanied with text. When you actually play the game, the clutter is left to a minimum. All you have is your life bar as a heart, your number of lives, and enchanted rose that acts like a timer.
Stained glass? That doesn't look as good as my stills though.
Well, my game has something that yours doesn't.
The Super Nintendo game actually has animated cutscenes. Animated on Nintendo, a still in Sega. Animated on Nintendo, a still in Sega. Give me the fully animated game any day.
The beast transforms, just like in the movie.
Speaking of which, what will you guys transform back into?
You know, it's been so long I can't remember.
Me too.
A boy, a man, Optimus Prime?
Maybe they're both babes.
This one over here? Definitely not a babe, not with that voice.
Well, why not? I mean, with your frog voice, there's no way you're a babe.
Maybe you could be a woman. You're definitely whine enough.
What? That seems offensive. I will remember that and bring it up time and time again during random arguments.
Let's just go back to the games.
Agreed. My game doesn't just have more animations. Let's look at other areas too.
In the Sega game, you'll see this rose a lot. It's pretty boring. Sure, the text changes, but it's always the boring rose. Let me show you. When you beat a level in Sega, rose. When you beat a level on Super Nintendo, well, if it isn't Mrs. Potts and Chip. When you use a continue in Sega, rose. When you use a continue in Super Nintendo, well, if it isn't Cogsworth. The rose is even used as a cutscene. Time passes? That just seems incredibly lazy.
There's just no denying my presentation.
Even though the Sega game has lots of pretty pictures, with more in-game cutscenes and more effort in other areas of the game, best presentation goes to Super Nintendo.
I have the Beauty and the Beast song in my game.
So do I. Do you have other songs from the movie?
I don't think so.
Don't tell me you just hear Beauty and the Beast the whole time.
No. I mean, I do have a remix of it.
I have a more action-packed version of the theme song. I actually do have an instrumental track from the movie, Battle on the Tower. The rest of the music's good enough.
Good enough isn't good enough. This is one of the most celebrated soundtracks of all time. You need more music from the movie, like my game.
I have something there. I have the mob song. I even have some of the instrumental tracks from the film.
Well, nobody cares about those extra songs. It's not like you have to be our guest.
How does that one go?
I think we can help you there.
All right, consoles are gonna sing for us.
Just like the movie.
Be all guests.
Wait! Why are you singing this song?
Is there something wrong with that?
Nothing. Besides the fact that you sound like a frog when you sing.
What is with you saying I sound like a frog? Do you actually know any frogs that can talk?
Yes, I know you.
It's all right, guys. We don't need to hear that song.
And even without that song, my game still has better sound effects.
When you hit an enemy on Super Nintendo, you hear a noise. On Sega Genesis, you don't hear anything. Sure, you hear the beast punch, but no sound from the enemies. Not even the bosses make a sound. Actually, these guys make a sound after getting hit, but it's ridiculously bad. And listen to the beast roar. On Super Nintendo, it sounds like a roar. Can you guess what it sounds like on the Sega Genesis? That's right, a big old fart. Roar of the Beast, the name of the game, sounds like a fart. It should be called Fart of the Beast, am I right?
Are you kidding me? That definitely sounds like a roar. Your game sounds like a fart.
You're mixing up your farts and roars again.
Oh, am I?
Dude, that can't be healthy.
Or is it the most healthy fart ever?
No, that's definitely unhealthy. You gotta get that checked out. And regardless of how either beast roars, my game still has better sound.
With more songs from the movie and overall better sound effects. Best sound goes to Super Nintendo.
The gameplay in the Sega game is excellent.
This game is an action platformer. You play as Beast. You can jump and punch. You can also run on all fours, which is faster, and then you can attack with your mouth. You can even roar to freeze enemies temporarily. Most of your time is spent punching enemies as you try to reach the end of the stage. Simple, but solid.
It's not as good as the Super Nintendo gameplay.
This is also an action platformer where you play as Beast. Your main moves are also jumping and punching. I can't crawl, but I can pan the screen up and down. I also have a ground stomp attack that can hurt enemies and reveal hidden items. I do have a roar, but it's used differently. Roaring is used mostly to activate devices. Platform isn't moving? A nice roar will fix that. The roar can also be used to freeze enemies. But these are enemies used for platforming. Is the ledge too far? Roar and jump on an enemy to get there. I also need to mention the roads. It's pretty much a fancy timer. If it runs out of petals, you die. It can be replenished by finding more petals. With more innovation, my game definitely has a better gameplay.
That's barely innovative. And my game has mini-games.
The Sega game has mini-games at the end of each level. These can give you more points or continues. They serve as a nice break from the action.
Those minigames are lame. I guess you need them since your game is so short.
The Genesis game is incredibly short. There are much fewer stages when compared to the Super Nintendo. And the Super Nintendo stages are generally longer.
Yeah, your game's longer, but it doesn't make it better.
Granted, the Super Nintendo game is longer, but a lot of it just feels repetitive. Why have 3 stages in a level with many of the same elements when it can easily be done with 2? And then there's this stage. The Super Nintendo game tries to recreate the scene from the movie where Belle and the Beast play in the snow. This whole stage, all you do is catch snowballs. That's it. This may not seem so terrible, but you can actually die on this stage. If you miss 3 snowballs, you die. That's insane! This shouldn't cost you lives and continues. This should be a minigame at best.
You're just mad because of how incredibly bad your game is.
Playing the Sega game is like walking on eggshells. You're incredibly careful the entire time you play. Your character can only take between 4 to 8 hits. It is so easy to die in this game. You're going to move very slow in this game in order to avoid being hit. That's not fun, but it's more fun than starting from the beginning.
Which leads me to checkpoints.
In Sega, if you lose a life, you start from the beginning of the stage. If you use a continue, then you start from the first stage of that level. There are no checkpoints or anything in this game, and they barely give you any health. Super Nintendo has checkpoints that are used if you die or use a continue.
Not even checkpoints can save your bad game. Now let's talk about one of the worst parts of your game. The jumping.
In most games when you jump, you can easily control the direction of your character with the D-pad. Jump, then move. The Super Nintendo game doesn't quite work like that. If you jump from standing, you won't be able to move your character while in the air. He pretty much just stays in place. In order to move, you need to get momentum from running first. So unless you run first, you won't be able to move while jumping. That doesn't sound like it can ruin a game, but it does. So often you miss ledges because you don't have enough momentum. And the Super Nintendo game has you platforming a lot. And small platforms are the worst, like these books and these bats, since they give you no room to run. They'll be pressing your thumb so hard in hopes of moving just that extra inch. Then, you have these blind jumps you have to do, because you need to get momentum, which means you can't see the platforms. Good luck with that! So the question then, why? Why did they make jumping like this? Why couldn't they just do what the other video games do? So many times in this game you'll fall and have to redo a section, or you'll lose health, or you'll die. Gaston isn't the worst enemy in this game, it's the jumping. Why did they do this?
While jumping on Super Nintendo is by far the worst control, it's not the only bad one.
Another bad control is running. Beast runs super fast. This is bad because if you actually decide you'll run, you'll definitely get hit by an enemy. The enemies are everywhere in this game. You need to move more cautiously than you do in the Sega game. Another bad control happens when you walk to the edge of the platform. The Beast does this teetering animation. You have 2 options at this point. You can either just fall, or you can go back on the ledge. This might seem like a good thing since it can prevent falling if you walk too far, but it's executed terribly in this game, especially on small platforms. Again, the bats and the books, just terrible. The teetering takes away your momentum. It makes it more difficult to jump to the next platform, and you're more likely to teeter on small platforms, like bats and books. These things are awful. This teetering takes over your jumping, and then you end up trying to avoid the teetering, and then you just jump right off and you lose all your progress. Stupid bats and books! This teetering, combined with the jumping, makes for some of the worst platforming ever in a game.
Your game just executes some of the most basic controls terribly.
Well, that doesn't make your game any good.
Well, it's still better than yours.
Yes, the Genesis game has its fair share of shortcomings, but nothing in Roar of the Beast compares to the platforming on Super Nintendo. It's just awful, and I don't recommend anyone try it ever. Even though it has its flaws, for not being as broken as the Super Nintendo game, best gameplay goes to Sega Genesis.
While both games are based on the movie, one is better. Best Beauty and the Beast goes to Sega Genesis.
It has better graphics with bigger characters and a look more in tune with the movie. It may not have the best presentation, but it has some good looking stills. It may not have a lot of songs from the movie, but at least it has the Beauty and the Beast theme. It may have some difficulty issues, but it still has better gameplay. Honestly, neither of these games are great. They both have flaws and only need to be played if you really love the movie. Even though the Sega game didn't do anything incredibly new, what it has works. The Super Nintendo game, on the other hand, feels incredibly broken. The jumping alone is reason not to play this game. Throw in the issues with the running and the teetering, and it's practically unplayable. pretty much being the lesser of two evils. Best Beauty and the Beast game goes to Sega Genesis.
We did it!
The curse! It's lifted! I can't wait to be cured!
And I don't care what we turn into. I can't wait to not have crap jammed into me anymore.
I'm so tired of the crap jamming.
I'm sure it'll be alright from now on.
Look, they're changing.
This is it. Thank you, friends. Wah! Oh no, I am toilet paper. This is terrible. Now, instead of putting crap in me, people will put their crap on me. Oh no, this is the worst thing ever. What did you change back into?
I don't want to talk about it. Toilet paper and a bedpan? They were made for each other.
Yeah, and don't worry, we're not gonna let anybody use you guys.
Yeah, consider us your bodyguards. As soon as I find a bathroom, I drank too much beer.
You know what? I ate all those beans. Stomach's feeling a little funky. Yeah, it's kind of an emergency situation. Well, I just need to use the... Wait a minute. There's no bathroom here.
Oh shit!
Thanks for checking out our latest video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And thanks to everyone who suggested Beauty and the Beast. And keep those other suggestions coming. We will get to them. Also, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more Console Wars goodness. Later.
I'm making my own show. I'm the angriest Super Nintendo guy. Do you have
And then I can do the nostalgia critic. Hello, I'm the Sega guy. I play it so you don't have to.